From the studios of Foxborough Cable Access, located in the center of Foxborough, Massachusetts, you are watching Around Foxborough.
Welcome back to another episode of Around Foxborough. My name is Julie Love. I'm your host. I'm very excited to have wonderful guests for this episode. We have two guests today. One is from Massachusetts and one is from California. And then they are experts of Morse code and ham radio. We're very excited to have you guys. Hi, Bruce, and hi, Rob. Welcome to our show.
Hi, Jury.
Hi, Jury. Thank you.
So, starting from Rob Brownstein, can you please tell us who you are and then what you do for the CWP Academy?
Okay, my name's Rob Brownstein, and I'm in Santa Cruz, California. I'm actually one of the original 12 people that started CW Ops, which is a big club. And one of our biggest entities is this thing called CW Academy. And I and a few other people were involved originally in putting it together. And it's grown tremendously. We have about 80 volunteers throughout the world who teach other amateur radio operators Morse code skills. And Bruce is one of those, and he's our guy in Massachusetts.
So, for people who don't know anything about CW Academy, CW Code, can you please explain what it is?
Sure. So Morse code, and let me demonstrate what Morse code sounds like when you hear it on the radio. There's two pieces to a Morse code letter. They are called code elements. One is short and one is long. And it's the combination, the series of those two elements that let you create a letter L or M or P or whatever. And what you do is spell out stuff using those letters, and that's how you communicate. So if we were going to Morse code to chat, I would say something like JURIHOWAREYOUPODAY. Now, we don't talk to each other that way. If we did, it would be really easy to do that. But the first thing that we have to learn is to be able to visualize words that are letters coming at us, and then to be able to hear those letters when the Morse code is being sent to represent the letter. And so CW Academy was a program involving people that were experienced with Morse code, teaching people who wanted to learn and gain experience how to do it.
So currently, how many members are in CW?
The CW Ops Club has about 2,200 members in 74 countries around the world.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. So Bruce, how do you fit in this CW Academy?
So I'm a member of CW Ops, and my passion has always been helping youth get involved with amateur radio. And this is due to a really great experience I had growing up in the Boston area. And so Rob and I have periodically over the years spoken to each other over the air, met each other at different amateur radio gatherings, and we had a conversation one night about actually kind of structuring a program more towards youth, where young people will participate in a class with their peers. They'll get to develop relationships with other young people, and then actually use these skills on the amateur radio frequencies, communicating with each other purely for the hobby aspect of being able to communicate using Morse code. And so at the time, CW Academy was so popular that there was a several-year waiting list. And I felt it was really unfair to expect a young person who is, say, a sophomore in high school to wait until they're a freshman in college to get to the beginning of the list.
Or a physician.
There you go. So this is really how the youth program really kind of took hold. We fast track the young people. We get them conversant in Morse code as quickly as possible. And then, as I like to say, we kick them out of the nest. We let them go and actually use what they've learned and have a good time.
So, my son, he's 10. He's got this device, and he's learning Morse code from Bruce right now. So, can you explain to our audience what this device is called?
Rob, do you want to take that?
Sure. So what you're seeing there is actually two things that are joined together. One is called a keyer that makes the tones that you hear, and the other is called a paddle, which you use with your hand to generate those tones. So when you press one of the paddles to the side, it makes the short duration code elements. When you press the other one to the opposite direction, it makes the long elements. Now the letter T is just, and the letter E is just, and A is a combination of the two. And N is the opposite. So you have four letters right there, T, E, A, and N. And I can spell the word tea, like T-E-A.
And so, Jerry, you've just learned the first four letters, the first group that we teach when we, I should say, advise when we conduct CW Academy. This is lesson number 1, T, E, A, and N. The four most commonly used letters in the English language.
Wonderful. So let's say we have about 6, 8 maybe youth in Foxborough right now currently taking the Morse code class. And then I just was able to write an article about it. And then how are the kids doing so far, Bruce?
The kids are doing great. Where I think about week number 5 or 6 right now. So they probably have a half a dozen letters left at the end of the alphabet, the least commonly used letters. So things like X, Q, and Z, which really kind of don't come up that often. And they're doing pretty well. Some students are obviously doing a little bit better than others, but they seem to be having fun. They seem to be coming back to my class, which is a very good thing, and they're well on their way.
Yes. So, Rob, when I first initially talked to you about the benefit of learning the Morse code at young age, I know you started at young age, and then how did it like really shift your career, and then how in general population when they learn Morse code will benefit from learning?
Well, that's actually a pretty rich subject. But back in the 1950s, 50s, as you may recall, well, you're too young, Jury, but the Russians had launched a Sputnik. I think it was 1956 or 57. And the United States was like, oh my God, we really need to get people up on science, technology, engineering, and math. That's when STEM first occurred. So all of a sudden there was this big push to get kids into science-oriented things. And one of those things was ham radio. And in order to get a license, which you needed to have in order to transmit and receive messages, you had to know the Morse code. And you had to be able to send and receive it at a minimum of 5 words a minute. So I had to learn it. And in the beginning, it was like, oh my God, okay, I'll learn it. And then once you learn it, you have a year to get to a higher speed of 13 and get the next class of license, which lasted forever. But if you didn't get there in that year, it was up or out. So there was a big incentive to become conversant with Morse code. And of course, as an 11-year-old kid trying to learn this stuff, there were things that I did right and things that I did wrong. And it took me, like I tell my students, it took me 12 years to get from 5 words a minute to 20 words a minute. And now we do it in 1 year. So we've learned a few things about how to do it better. And that's what CW Academy is really good at doing.
How about you, Bruce?
Well, so I think going back to your question, Jerry, it was like, how has Morse code kind of had an impact on my life, right? And I think it's more a question, as Rob said, you needed to learn the Morse code to get involved with amateur radio. And it's amateur radio that's completely changed my life. It gave me direction when I was a young person. It's called the original social network. And so many of the friends I made when I was 14, 15, 16 years old are close friends of mine today. It led to my interest in electronics and telecommunications, and led to what I studied in college, and led to a career. And that career allowed me to travel and meet my wife and have a family. And so I can say without much consideration that everything that I hold dear in life has an amateur radio connection to it. And so it's a great activity. And this is one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about helping young people in amateur radio.
Yeah, I agree. I think everything that you said is absolutely true.
That's wonderful. So currently, as a teacher or member, what kind of project are you working on with using Morse code or amateur radio?
So I'm not sure when you say what kind of project that we're using. I use amateur radio on a daily basis as part of my amateur radio hobby. So I think most ham radio operators, sometimes they operate daily, weekly, monthly. It depends on them and their schedules and their priorities. But typically, I will get on the air once or twice a day and either answer what I call is what's called a CQ, which is a general call to other operators. If I don't hear anyone calling CQ, I will call, which is a CQ. And it's just like, Jerry, it's just like going fishing. You never know what you're going to catch. You throw that line out and people will answer. There are very famous people who are amateur radio operators, or there are many, 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 many others like us who are not so famous. And you never know who you're going to speak to. It could be somebody who's rich, who's poor, who's a man, who's a woman, who's black, who's white, who's American, who's in any country around the world. You never know, like the old saying, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. And amateur radio is very much that way. You run into a lot of old friends, or you're always making new friends, but it's a very interesting hobby. And there's lots of different things that people do. Rag chewing, which is what I just described, where you just have casual conversations with people, is only one aspect of the hobby. There are people that are bouncing signals off the moon, communicating via satellite, talking to astronauts on the space station. There's many, many, many different things you can do with amateur radio. Not all of them involve Morse code. So there's lots and lots of different things, aspects to the hobby. Rob, you want to chime in?
Yeah, well, like I was saying, as a kid, Morse code to me at first was a barrier I had to overcome to get a license. And then I was hoping that once I got high enough in speed, that I would start using voice instead of Morse code. And it turned out that when I got to that place, I realized I liked Morse code a lot. I thought, oh, I'll put that aside and forget about it. And I couldn't. I just enjoyed it more than any other aspect of the hobby. And there's a lot of technical reasons why it's a very, very efficient and good way to communicate. But you know, it's impacted my life in a very similar way to Bruce. Everything I've done from the time I became a ham was involved in science and technology. All the jobs I've had in my life and careers were involved in science and technology. And today, especially, the ham radio thing is really crucial because think of all the things that we have in life now that are wireless. All the principles that underlie all those wireless things are exactly the same as what I learned at age 11.
Wow, that's really powerful to hear. And then, so you communicate with pretty much everybody in the world who has this communication skill. How far have you talked to people from Japan or like like what countries? I'm sure you have communicate with a lot of people from different countries, but I'm just
So,
curious.
so one
There
of
was
the
an event. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say one of the interesting kind of subgroups in the hobby is something called DXing, where you actually attempt to converse with people in as many different countries as possible around the world. And there are awards that are associated with this. There are radio contests that are associated with how many countries can you speak with in a 48-hour period, and there's points and all of those things that are associated with that. So Rob and I both have many friends from many different countries around the world.
Just to give you an example, 2 weekends ago, there was one of those contests. And your question about Japan, the contest started for me at 4 p.m. on Friday and ended at 4 p.m. on Sunday. At 4 p.m. on Friday, I turned my rotatable antenna to the northwest and in the course of an hour had two-way exchanges with 140 people in Japan, the Philippines, and China.
No way. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
It's Jury, it's amazing. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of people who participate just in these radio contests. So again, it's a lot of fun. Young people in particular, I don't know if it's because they've been involved with computer games or what it is, but young people in particular really enjoy radio sport, radio contesting.
That's amazing. Well, I am very happy that you both came to Foxborough Cable Access Show today around Foxborough. How can people find out about what you do? Is there a website? Is there a Facebook page? Will you tell us all?
Yeah, there's a website that they can go to. It's www.cwops.org. When they get there, there's a menu, and on the menu, there's a thing called CW Academy. Click on that, and you'll find out everything you need to know about the program and how it works and all that good stuff.
And do you have Facebook page or Instagram page?
We do. I'm not on it, but I know there is a sort of an unofficial Facebook page. Maybe you know about that, Bruce.
There are several. I think there is a CW Ops Facebook page and a CW Academy Facebook page. So either one of those, if you do a quick search on Facebook, you should be able to find those.
Great. So for the people who want to learn more about Morse code or ham radio, the best way for them is to go to the website and then contact you?
So that's one way. The national organization is the ARRL, the American Radio Relay League. They're the National Association for Amateur Radio. And you can find out more about amateur radio in the United States by going to www.arrl.org.
Perfect. Wonderful. Well, thank you both for coming to our show. Would you please give our audience your last word? Rob.
Okay, so Bruce just said two numbers, 7-3, which in ham radio means best regards. And my response back would be
73.
73.
Oh my gosh. That is so cool. All right. Well, thank you very much again for coming to our show, both of you.
Thank you, Jury. We appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone, for watching another episode of Around Foxborough. My name is Julie Love. I'm your host. And our executive director is Michael Weber, and our director is Paul Beck. Our website is fcatv.org, and you can click on Video on Demand and click on Around Foxborough to watch another episode. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful day.